Hi, 7th graders. This video, Narrative Writing and Written Speech, is intended to help you with the next couple of projects that you will have on your plate. So let's start with narrative writing. So although writing fiction is a creative, artistic process, it still requires hard work and advanced planning to integrate or combine ideas and themes, develop strong characters, and tell a compelling story. The Call of the Wild has all of these elements, and by reflecting on what you have learned from the novel, you can better prepare to create your own narrative essay about the Klondike. So, in other words, you are going to be writing a story, a fictional story, about the Klondike. So it's going to be set in the Klondike. You're going to come up with your own characters, your own storyline, and all of that, and it has to be set in the Klondike or the far north. So before you write, one of the keys to a successful narrative is attention to detail. The more details you include in your story, the more the reader will be able to picture what you are describing and feel what you want felt. To help create a narrative with rich details, you ask yourself a few questions before you begin. Remember, if you don't have rich details, it's going to be boring. I won't be able to picture what you're saying, and it won't be as good. So we're going to concentrate first on characters. So first of all, think about your characters. Think about them in advance of writing. Will the story focus on one primary character, or will there be multiple main characters? So think about that first. Once you have a sense of who will be the main characters, think about exactly who you want them to be. So in other words, on a scrap sheet of paper, write out your characters, their names, and a little bit about them. Okay, what their background is, so you have a sense of who they are before you start writing your story. Okay, and talking about that, what is the history of your main characters? What has happened to them before your story begins? Okay, that is important so that they have, so you can create some deep details about them. What's happened to them before your story begins? How has that shaped who they are and what they believe? What are their strengths and weaknesses? The more you understand about who the characters are at the beginning of your story, the more prepared you will be to explore what happens to them in the story. So again, write on your paper your main characters, their names, and what's happened to them before their story begins. Just jot down a few details. What is each of the characters' strengths? What is their weakness? Think about what drives them, what their goals are, what are their likes and dislikes. So after you have your characters sketched out, you're going to think about your setting. You will write a narrative set in the frozen north, but when? Okay, think about when. Do you want it to be in the present, the past, or in the future? What time of year is it? What is the context that is created by the setting? So after you create your characters, think about what year you want to have this in. Okay? And what time of year, spring, summer, winter, fall, certain month, a certain time of day, different times of day. So in the Call of the Wild, the setting isn't just the Klondike, but it's the Klondike Gold Rush, which is an event that happened in history. That context shapes the entire story, and the details of that context are present throughout the book. Okay, they're always talking about the gold rush and that historical event around the characters, around what happens in relation to all of the setting. So you need to carefully consider the world in which your narrative takes place. So consider the setting, time and place, and historical context or futuristic context before you begin. Then you can work on your plot. Part of writing is an act of discovery. As you write, you figure out plot and events, but you still want to have a rough sense of what will happen in your story before you begin. So, After you've written your characters, after you've written your setting, on your scratch piece of paper, write what major events you want to take place in this story. You don't have to write everything about them now, but event 1, event 2, event 3, what major things do you want to have happen? And what are they going to contribute to the story? Okay, so if you're going to talk about, for example, your character was on an Iditarod race, so what does that have to do with what's going on in your story? Okay, your major events have to relate to what's going on in your story. So as you think about the plot, reflect on how events are related to themes. For example, if you were writing about your character on the Iditarod race, one of your themes might be perseverance, or sticking to something, or seeing something through. Okay, because that makes a deeper, richer story. Now we're talking about narrative voice. There's 5 kinds of narrative voice that you are going to choose from to write in. If you write in the first person, the qualities are that the narrator is a character in the story. You would use words like I and me to tell the story. And the reader only knows what the narrator knows. Nothing from the outside. You can't, if you're writing in the first person, you can't know what another person is thinking. You can only know what they say. So an example sentence of first person would be, I woke up thinking about what the day would bring. I wondered where the cat was. If you write in the second person, the reader's still a character in the story, but uses the word you when talking about action. But this voice is almost never used because it's kind of hard to keep in the second person. An example sentence would be, you woke up thinking about the day would bring, you wondered where the cat was. Okay, that doesn't usually make a good narrative story, so let's eliminate that one. If you're writing in the third person objective, the narrator's not a character in the story, just someone who's watching the action. They use the words like he, she, and they, but the narrator doesn't reveal any character's thoughts or feelings, and it is instead like a person watching from the outside. Okay, so if you were just watching a play, you would be describing something in the third person objective. An example sentence, he woke up. What will the day bring? He said. He looked around the room for something. Okay, you're not wondering where the cat was. You can't say that because that would be what the person is thinking inside. You can only describe what you see. And that is sometimes used for stories. Third person limited, the character again is not, or the narrator is not a character in the story. You use words like he, she, and they. But the narrator knows and reveals the thoughts and feelings of one character only. The narrator knows only what that character knows. Okay, so it's like a person looking in from the outside, except they know what that one character is feeling and doing. An example sentence, he woke up thinking about what the day would bring. He wondered where the cat was. And third person limited is used frequently in telling stories. Okay, you wouldn't be able to know what anyone else is thinking, but you would know what they say and do. But you would know what the one character is thinking. Third person omniscient is where the narrator knows everything, but is not a character in the story. Again, they use words like he, she, and they. The narrator knows and reveals the thoughts and feelings of every character. The narrator essentially knows everything, including what will happen in the future. An example sentence, he woke up thinking about what the day would bring. He wondered where the cat was, having no idea that the beast had already broken a lamp, torn a curtain, and eaten the cupcakes for the party. Even then, the cat was plotting more evil things to do. So in third person omniscient, the narrator not only knows what the main character is thinking, wondering where the cat is, but he also knows what the cat did and what the cat is thinking, plotting. So you have to figure out which one your narrative voice is going to be, and you have to stick to that through the whole story. Let's go on to audience. You have to think about who is the story for. So you don't need to know exactly who will be reading it, but it's always important to have a sense of who your readers might be. If Jack London had written the Call of the Wild with an audience of wealthy academics in mind, he might have written a tremendously different book. So wealthy academics, in other words, would be like people who are rich and really into literature and things like that. In this case, you are going to be writing for me, your teacher. So we're going to just pause for a moment. Sorry about that. So I'm sorry I had to pause it for a minute. I got an important phone call. So anyway, your audience is going to be me. So think about, keep that in mind as you write. You're not going to use slang language usually when you're writing for your teacher. Let's go on to theme and purpose. Finally, you need to give some thought as to why you're writing this narrative. What do you want to say? What interests you? Your story doesn't have to have a moral or a message, but it should be driven by an idea that you are passionate about. What do you want to write? Okay? Think about things that you like and put them into the theme and why you're writing this story. Now, I know you're writing because it's an assignment, but you also need to think about other purposes that you might want to write for, things you're interested in. Okay, details here. Remember, the key to good writing is rich descriptive detail. Use this outline chart to answer each of the questions above, and then use the information in the chart to help you add great detail to your narrative. So you don't have to print this out, but it is a good idea to just sketch this out on a notebook, sheet of paper, or whatever, so that you can keep it all in mind, like we were talking about earlier as you were writing. So the description of your characters, setting, plot, examples of how this will be addressed in or by the story. So an example of how the characters are, what the setting is like, what's going to happen in the plot, and then have a description of what your narrative voice will be, who your audience is, and what are some themes you're going to talk about. Then examples of how your narrative voice is, how you would talk to your audience, and your theme. Now this chart is not to turn in, it is so that you can do your best on this assignment. And it's so that it makes it a lot easier, believe it or not, doing this first will make it a lot easier to write your story so that you don't have to go back and do revisions because your teacher's reassigned it for you. All right, how will you be graded? Your ideas and content. You need to have your main theme, your supporting details, clear characterization, and clear setting. I need to know all of those. They need to all be clear. Your organization is your structure, that it has a clear beginning, middle, end. You use transition words like then, now, in a little while, things like that. Your voice, I'm going to need to be able to see a personality, a sense of audience. Word choice, you're going to be graded on precision and not just saying the same old tired words over and over again. He felt good, she was happy, he was sad. Old tired old words. So precise. Look up in thesaurus.com synonyms or words that mean the same as good or happy or sad. Be much better. Okay, how effective you use those words, and imagery, how your words create a picture in my mind when I read it. You'll be graded on your sentence fluency, the variety in your appropriate spelling, of course. They expect you to be able to spell all words. Where normal, beginnings of sentences, proper nouns, names, all things like that, your punctuation and your grammar. All of that is going to be what you're graded on. And that's all for your narrative. Now, your written speech. This is only for people in the G version of this course. If you're in the AR version, you don't need to write the speech, which is going to be separate from your written story. So anyone in the G version of this course, you're going to see your narrative project, then you're going to see your formal informal speech project. Two separate things. So this is addressing the speech part of it. You are going to write a excuse me, a 5-minute oral presentation about the Call of the Wild, writing first for an audience of your peers. Your peers are fellow students, people your age. You have to write about what did you find most fascinating or interesting about the story, and what did you think were its important points. Now remember, this is a 5-minute speech, so you're going to do about 5 paragraphs. Okay, so you're writing for an audience of your peers, less formal language. Then you make small changes to your speech and adapt it to be presented to a formal audience, like all of teachers say. So then you enter both versions of your speech in the writer box, formal and informal, for your assignment. Okay, you don't have to present this speech, you just write it. 2 different versions. Informal first and formal. Okay, same speech, but just change. And again, this is only required for the students taking the G version of this course. The AR version will not do the speech, but they will do the narrative, it should say. Okay, if you have questions, let me know before you're writing, while you're writing. I'd be happy to help. Okay, if you're at today's live class, you have to type the date into the assignment box, but if you're watching the recording, you must call me to get credit for watching this video. Both of my phone numbers are there. Try both if you don't get me at one before you leave a message. And good luck on your project. Talk to you later. Bye.